I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We have the great pleasure of speaking with two individuals who co-authored an article for Cosmetics and Toiletries in our July-August issue that's all about climate change, the impact of the beauty industry, and a sustainable path forward for our industry with some different highlights and ideas for us. So I want to welcome today, we have with us Dr. Giorgio Dell'Acqua, who is the National SCC Secretary and also with the New York chapter of the SCC. So thank you and for joining us today, Giorgio. Also, Antonia Kostic with A Formulator is the other co-author. She could not join us live, so we have interspersed some video responses to similar questions throughout our conversation with Dr. Dell'Acqua. So thank you again for joining us today, Giorgio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a really urgent topic right now, and climate change is the name of the game here. This is what we're here to talk about. So maybe we could just start by having you give us an overview of the article and maybe talk a little bit about why it's so important to talk about it now.
No, absolutely. So the article is really an examination of the drivers of climate change. That is, of course, a headline pretty much everywhere. The article is focusing on the impact of global warming on natural ingredient sourcing. That's why it's very relevant to our industry. We're also looking at what could be new alternative solution to like the classic sourcing that we have today. Things like biotech or precision farming, regenerative agriculture. We also discuss the choices that the product developer can make to support the sustainability and circularity and when we develop formulation of products.
The article addresses the concept of sustainability and highlights the detrimental effects of human-induced pollution such as global warming, ocean acidification, desertification, and alterations in weather patterns. So these issues collectively impact food security, habitat preservation, and economic stability. While the cosmetic industry is not solely to blame, it does contribute. So this article presents current sustainable solutions for reducing its impact on climate change, starting from the beginning, from supply chain through farming, presenting climate change resilient or resistant farming choices and biotech solutions, and actually in the end how you can get a more sustainable product that has sustainable ingredients, sustainable formula, and sustainable packaging.
So is it, that there's been something, I don't know, politically or socially that's kind of inspired you to come forth with this now? Is the time just right that we can make a change? The urgency's been around for a while, so why talk about it now?
No, totally good question. Always have this urgency in my heart, but I think maybe by seeing more articles coming to the press, the urgency of the topic, I started to think about what else can we do as an industry. So it's really pushed me to go into a deeper dive on the impact of climate change on the industry. Also, not long ago, I want to also share something that happened. That is actually, I met a professor. He was actually giving an amazing lecture of climate change and how climate change can influence the food industry supply chain. So he wrote a book about climate change in the food industry, and I read that book, and it was really inspiring because as we can imagine, many things that's coming from food of that kind of source is also similar to our industry, right? Many ingredients coming from plants, from fruits. So I said, okay, there are so many analogies. So I learned a lot, and I said, I want to bring this piece also to the cosmetic industry. And finally, having also conversation with the younger generation, and often ask me, what can we do? I say, okay, look, I'm going to write something, and I'm going to discuss with you guys. I really want the young generation to chime in and be like the drivers of the future when it's our industry. So providing more information, it's very important to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
The consequences of climate change are tremendous and irreversible, affecting every aspect of our lives, and they will even get worse. So that is why this is really crucial to raise awareness and take action now. So as a part of the growing cosmetic industry, and since everyone uses cosmetic products, we really have the opportunity to reduce our impact and spread this consciousness As individual, we can do something, but we are the most powerful if we act together. So let's preserve this planet for future generations.
So, you know, you mentioned we get into several of those different drivers of climate change. Do you think there's a particular one that really impacts our industry the most? And why would you say that?
I would say, so if you're asking like, what is the industry impact on climate change? Like, what is the industry actually contributing, unfortunately, to that change? There are many topics that, of course, we have been discussing in the past, especially when we talk about sustainability, like waste. Like waste is a big one when you think about packaging and the way we produce packaging or dispose packaging, but also ingredients. In general, I would say that waste is not good because it goes into the landfill. The landfill then produce methane. Methane is obviously producing greenhouse gases. I think things like try to be more conscious about how we use our ingredients. So maybe use more upcycling, optimizing in the formulation, do more green formulation. This is definitely one topic that I think waste should be addressed. The other one that is to me is very big and maybe even more important because it's really related to the carbon footprinting is the concept of deforestation. Deforestation is huge, right? And this can come for different reasons. Of course, cultivation, of ingredients, we need to look for lands. So trees are cut to put more to grow. And of course, that growing produce many of our ingredients. So we need to kind of be conscious about that. I think regenerative agriculture is this new concept coming up where in fact there is a more conscious use of the land in a different way. Also, the trees are used to produce paper, right? I mean, I don't know if our audience knows that we cut about 200 million trees every day. 200 million trees are cut every day for different reasons, but one reason is definitely paper. So how much paper we use in doing our boxes, right? The boxes where we put our products.
Right.
So can we look at something else, maybe alternative fibers? Another element of cutting trees is like palm oil, like deforestation due to growing palm oil for the industry. This is a big one. Can we use alternative to palm oil, maybe sunflower oil or something like that? So there are all these topics I think are big contributors, and definitely there must be mentality shift to maybe go into a different direction with alternative solution.
Yeah, important stuff. And some great innovations happening in that way too. I know you go through some of those in the article.
Regarding environment, I believe that cosmetic industry has notable impact on gas emissions and resource depletion. So basically, if you think about the beginning, so the production and sourcing of raw materials and then manufacturing, that part actually contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and also clean water scarcity and then extensive energy consumption. So I believe there can be some twists done to make it more in a sustainable way. But we also cannot forget about the issues such as poor waste management and still the problem with plastic packaging.
What would you say maybe is the bigger impact on our industry?
I think in general, climate change, and probably we notice that every day, right? We see that things weird happening. Climate is not the same as before. We get more fires, right? On the west, we see a lot of raining on the east. So more flooding, more environmental changes that are really dramatic. All of these are definitely impacting the way the natural resources like plants, bushes, things grow. So we won't see those trees growing at the region anymore because maybe get flooded. We won't see that tree coming from there because maybe get burned. So there are a lot of changing due to that, and we need to be conscious that eventually this will impact our supply chain. So how to address this? How can we limit that? I think one way we discuss the way we do agriculture, maybe we should be more based on rotation, less disruptive on the soil, increase the composting, maintaining the biodiversity as much as we can, improve the water drainage. There are many things to increase carbon sequestration and reduce the impact of what is happening. But of course, we cannot completely change the world right now. What we can do, we need to look at alternatives. So while the scientists are working on creating species plant species that are more resistant to climate change. Is interesting because it happened also at the environmental level. So like with the coral reef, they try to find species that are more resistant to heat and increase temperature in the oceans, but also moving some of the cultivation northern. So it happens, for instance, in France, they may try to move the lavender production a little bit northern, like they do with the champagne, because it's not growing at a certain temperature anymore. And then, of course, a lot of things that happen in the lab, right? So we talk about biotech, we talk about fermentation, we talk about precision farming. So all these techniques allow to grow ingredient in-house so that you can produce molecules that we can use. I'm fascinated by cellular farming. So you can actually take cells from a plant grown in pretty dishes and then produce ingredient there. You can also do precision farming that is actually more controlled just in like greenhouses inside. Actually, you can really control the way you grow ingredient by simulating the environment. I see a lot of fermentation. We mentioned that using yeast and bacteria to produce ingredient. So more technique, more technology helping us to kind of at least offset a little bit while we figure it out how to keep going with the cultivation.
Yeah.
Addressing the industry's impact on climate change requires a multi-phased approach. So companies can prioritize sustainability by favoring renewable and biodegradable materials, then optimizing formulations to minimize the waste and energy consumption, and adopting eco-friendly packaging solutions. It is also worth mentioning that changes within cosmetic regulation is really important to make this process faster.
I'll ask it, but I think you kind of already answered it. But it's kind of thinking now in the ending on a positive note kind of vibe here.
Yes.
You talked a lot about, what areas of innovation have a lot of promise for us. Are there particular ones that you think might be the easiest for the industry to try to adopt to kind of make the first step? I mean, what are some of the, I don't know, most obvious maybe steps that we can take right now to move in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many steps. I think even a small step could be very useful. We talk about waste management, right? This is a big one. So really, waste management is happening also in the household, right? We try to compost more, we try to recycle more, we try to reuse more. I think this is an easy step if you want in the industry. I see also try to use alternative fibers to cellulose. I see things coming that I don't see why it should not be easy to do. When you look at instead of using cellulose from trees, maybe you can use fibers from bamboos, from agave, from hemp, right? Things that have been used also historically that can grow in a bushes and easier. So all these elements to kind of reduce the impact on the trees. I think trees is very important. So the goal is like not to cut too many trees and really use the biodiversity and do more rotation. So working with the farmers, for instance, to really educate them about how can produce products in a sustainable way without keeping cutting trees and without destroying the soil. So create a soil that is very regenerative, but also able to absorb the carbon. You can do the same with the ocean. So there are many ways that are actually available. The techniques are there. We just need to dig more and partner with the right people that can help us grow all these elements. And this is basically natural ways. And of course, offsetting many of these effort with some more indoor and some more production of molecules by all these techniques that I just mentioned before, like, again, biotech-based technique that is coming very strong right now in the industry.
Yeah, great.
Since climate change is growing, more and more people are trying to find these solutions. So right now there are a couple of innovations, but I believe that in the near future there will be more. I will mention just two types of farming. One is called climate resilient, another one climate resistant farming. Regarding climate resilient farming, that's the type of farming where the crops are actually modified and they tolerate weather fluctuations, higher heat or higher temperatures and water losses. The other one that I mentioned is climate resistant farming or indoor farming, which is also known as vertical farming, where actually the condition of agriculture is in controlled way. So which means that we can adjust the temperature, decide about the soil, and everything to actually get more concentrated raw material in the end. So these are the innovations that I wanted to mention, but read the article and you'll find out even more.
Is there anything that I missed that you want to add is like a take-home message?
No, I think the whole message is that everyone can do something. We cannot just sit and see the inevitable happening. The idea that only if we are politicians, we can change something, it's a way to kind of not be involved and say, there is nothing I can do. I think everyone can do something. I think we just have to do a little things in our daily life and in our life as an industry. And every time we produce a product, every time we source ingredient, we need to ask the question, is this the best, most sustainable way I can do it, right?
Yeah.
And instead of just doing, start to change our mindset, because eventually this is going to be mandatory everywhere. The United Nations is coming soon with a mandatory policy for every single company doing business in the European Union to come with a sustainability report. Corporate sustainability report, nice and thick. So every company needs to show that they're doing something for sustainability and the climate. So I think eventually it's going to come. So better start now and start to do the right thing.
So I think with that, we can go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank you, Giorgio, for joining us today. And also thanks to Antonia for sending us her video responses to chime in on this article that they co-authored together. So thank you so much.